Okay, so we're starting a few minutes early just to spend a few minutes sitting, just noticing the breath for a few minutes. So you can either have your eyes open or your eyes closed and be sitting at the front of your chair, so you're on your sit bones, your hands resting, your arms resting, and allow your feet to be on the floor, so they're flat on the floor, just sitting on the chair, or your sofa, or on the edge of your bed, whichever room you're in, and let the feet be right underneath your knees. Yeah, so just be in a comfortable position. If you're sitting on the edge of your chair or your sofa, wherever you are, you will find that you'll be on your sit bones. So notice where your sit bones are when you're sitting. And just notice your right and left sit bone. And imagine that you've drawn a line between them. And then there's a little circle or a little dot in the middle of that line. And allow your spine to feel that it's growing from that center line, that center dot. And then you can just be aware of where your spine begins and where your spine ends. Yeah. So we're going to spend 2 or 3 minutes of just noticing the breath. So I'm not going to speak. So I'm not going to speak for a couple of minutes. So you get a bit of peace and quiet. Nice. And you're just allowing that time to notice your breathing and see how much of your focus and your awareness you can place on your breath. And when you notice that after 2 or 3 breaths that your mind has wandered, then just bring it back and notice the next breath. Sounds simple, yeah? If it was, everybody would be doing it. Here we go. And then allow your eyes to open. Lovely. And then we'll start the seated Pilates session. So if you're staying for that, lovely. So staying where you are, on your chair, and being aware of what we were doing just now. You're sitting at the front of your chair and you're on your sit bones. Your feet are noticing the floor and they're underneath your knees. So just notice how long the shin bones are from your knees going all the way down to the heels. So notice where your heels are. And notice the angle from your knee to your pelvis, all the way up into your hip bones. And when you sit, you should always feel that the knees are at the same height or a little bit lower than your hip bones. And so you don't create a compression here in your pelvis or in your hips. So we're going to do some rolling of your sit bones. So allow your pelvis to roll underneath you, as if you're as if the pubic bone is going towards your rib cage. So you'll feel that your back's going towards the chair, and then come forwards to the front of your sit bones, and you start to lift your heart a little bit, and then rolling back and coming forwards. So keeping the head still now, just reduce the range that you just did, make it smaller, and just allow the pelvis to tuck under and roll forward. So it's quite a small movement, and just noticing your sit bones and how your sit bones move and your awareness of your sit bones. You notice one side more than the other. So your head's not doing anything at all, you're just allowing your pelvis to move, and you feel that you're rolling back off your sit bones a little bit and rolling forwards a little bit. Noticing your breathing, letting your jaw relax. And then see if you, let's play on this side a little bit. So see if you can have more weight on this sit bone, on this side. So you feel a little bit of lightness, or it looks like you're coming off the other sit bone, and a heaviness on this side. And notice, even though we're just talking about the sit bone feeling heavier on this side, how that has changed the weight in your feet. Maybe even something going on in your shoulders, maybe even your neck slightly longer on one side and shorter on the other, and maybe even noticing what's going on with your rib cage. And then come back to the middle. So come back to noticing both sit bones, rolling on both. And then take the weight over onto the other sit bone. So you're shifting slightly. It's not a big shift, so you're not really lifting that other sit bone. It's very slight, very subtle. And you're just rolling forwards and backwards gently and slowly and smoothly, and noticing what that side feels like. That's how your neck feels on that side, your shoulders, if your waist feels longer on one side than the other, how your feet feel, if there's more weight in one foot than the other. And then come back to the middle and rolling onto both sit bones, backwards and forwards, just noticing like the little wheels rolling. And then find a middle position, so you're not too far forwards, not too far back, but you're right in the middle. It's like Goldilocks finding that right bowl of porridge. And then we're going to allow the head to move. So we're going to keep the pelvis where it is. So lift the head and look up at the ceiling, and then drop the head to look down. So lifting the head to create more space between your chin and your chest. And when you drop the head, you reduce that space. So the pelvis isn't going to do anything at all, but you might notice that in trying to keep the pelvis still as you move your head, there might be a slight shifting in your pelvis a little bit. Just lifting the head and dropping the head. So when you lift the head, notice what the back of the head's doing. It's looking down towards your tailbone. And when you take the chin down towards your chest, the back of the head looks to the ceiling. And then bring the head back to the middle and just turn to look over one shoulder, and then turn to look over the other shoulder. And just turn to the other side. Just do a little bit of rotation. So nothing too much. There's no, we must get to this point, but just turn and see which side is easier for you. Which side feels easier? For me, it's this side. More space. And this side feels a little bit more closed. Like there's something here that's stopping me. It's like a hand there. It's pushing me forward. I feel like I can't go back too much on that side. But this side, well, I can move all day long. But this side, a little bit tighter, feels more restricted. Okay, so we're going to come back to this movement in the pelvis and the head, but we're going to move them both together. So if you've done cat stretches before, it's very similar to cat stretches when you're on your hands and knees, but we're sitting, which is nice, yeah? So we're getting this movement in the spine and the ribs. So tuck your tailbone underneath you and let your chin go towards your pubic bone, and then roll the pelvis forward and lift the head and look up at the ceiling. And then drop the head, roll the pelvis, so you're tucking under, so pubic bone and chin feel like they're going to meet. And then you lift and you create more space between your chin and your pubic bone. And then you do that movement again. So notice that what your eyes see every time. If it makes you feel a bit dizzy, you can close your eyes. Or if you want to sense more, you can close your eyes. If you want to feel the movement more in your tailbone and in your sit bones. And we're just rolling forwards and backwards. Noticing your feet, how they feel on the floor. Relaxing your hands. And then come back to what feels like the middle. And we're going to do that again, but this time your chin is going to stay down. So let your chin stay down and let your pelvis move backwards and forwards, rolling on those sit bones, but your head doesn't move. Your chin stays down towards your throat, as if it's looking at something on the floor that it's found really interesting. And your pelvis is the only thing that's moving. So next time that you roll the pelvis forward, so you're on the front of your sit bones, let your head lift. So you lift your chin, and you're going to keep the head in this position with a feeling that the back of your head's looking down. Keep your head lifted as you roll your pelvis forwards and backwards. So nothing changes with your head. Your nose is looking towards the ceiling as you roll the pelvis forwards and backwards. Back of the sit bones, front of the sit bones, noticing where the middle is. Noticing what's happening with your lower back, your rib cage, your feet. And then come back to the middle and go back to what we did in the beginning. So rolling under and letting the head go and rolling forwards and lifting the head. So you're just noticing how the pelvis and the head move and the spine that joins them. And then come back to the middle, and let's turn again to one side and then turn to the other side. Nice. And so just notice what turning feels like on both sides, and just your restricted side or your side that feels that you couldn't move as far, as that opens up a little bit more for you. And then come back to the middle, and we're going to do this on one side. So I'm going to go to this side. So I'm going to turn slightly to this corner of the room. It's probably like I'm turning to this side of the phone, and I'm going to tuck under, drop my head and lift. So my head goes up, then my pelvis moves, same as my head, tucking under and lifting. And it's like I'm drawing a line or painting a line with my nose going up and down that corner of the room. So this is a really nice way to get your neck freed up and notice the movement in your shoulders, your shoulder blades, and gets the movement in your ribs, in your pelvis, and your lower back. And there's a lot of fascial work we're doing with the lower back, but also the front as well, because we're getting the abdominals to connect as you roll. And creating more space in the front of your ribs so you can breathe more easily into your lungs. And noticing the back of your head, how that moves as well, but also working your hips. So it's a lot of full body stuff going on here. And then come back to the middle and do a little bit of rotation, one side, turning to the other side, and just noticing how turning feels on both sides. Okay, so then we're going to look towards this corner of the room, and we're going to lift the head and lift your tailbone off the chair. So the back of the head goes towards your tailbone, and then you tuck under and you drop the head. So you're rolling forwards and backwards. So as if you're just painting a line with your nose in that corner, far corner of the room. And rolling on the pelvis, on your hips, forwards and backwards. Yeah. Last one. And then come back to the middle and put that all together. So lifting and tucking under. And then come back to the center and turn a little bit to one side and then to the other side. Oh, that's much nicer. So I have more space now. I can move easily on the other side. So just notice if you can move a lot better. It might only improve like a little bit, a tiny amount, but that's better than it not improving. Lovely. Last time turning, and then come back to the middle. Link your hands together and notice when you link your hands together which thumb is forward and which index finger is forward. Now unlink your hands and do them on the other way around. So have the other thumb forward and the other index forward. So the non-habitual way, so this way will feel a bit weird or a little bit different because it's not the way you usually do work your hands, or your non-dominant hand. So we're just working with the non-habitual way. So you're going to take your arms forward, you're going to let your elbows relax and start to draw circles, not circles, figure of 8. Yeah, not circle, it's figure of 8, as if it's lying on its side. And then go back the other way. You'll notice there's a movement in your shoulders and in your ribs. And then come back, uncross the hands and put them in the habitual way, the normal way that just feels like, oh, it's always worked like that. And then do your figure of 8. And then unwind that. And then bring it back and shake out your hands. And then you're going to start to feel that you could shift onto one sit bone. So feel that you're lifting one sit bone and then put it down, and feel that you're lifting the other sit bone and put it down. As if someone's going to put their hand underneath your sit bone. As if you're lifting and shifting the weight over onto one side of your pelvis. Just shifting. So notice when you're shifting, that when you're lifting up that side of your pelvis, this side of your body shortens. And when you lift up the other side, that side shortens. So you're tightening up or restricting movement, creating shortness in the muscles and in the fascia. And notice if there's one side that feels different to the other. Does one side feel that it's already there, that it's already short? Maybe you hold tension in one side of the body more than the other, especially if you feel a bit anxious or a bit worried. Maybe one side that feels a little bit like it's clenching. And that's quite a nice thing to notice. Can you notice when you do that? You can let it go. If you don't notice, you can't let go. So what we're going to do is lift this side and let the opposite shoulder reach away from you. And then you're going to lift the other side and let the opposite shoulder reach away from you. So lifting that side as if I'm going to put something underneath your sit bone and push that shoulder away from you on a high diagonal. So you're creating length here. And then a lift. It's going to feel a bit odd. We don't do this movement very often, do we? But you're finding a connection between the pelvis and your shoulder, hip and shoulder. And then come back, like you're doing some little funky dance. And then come back to the middle. And you'll notice that your sit bones will feel quite equal now. So turn to one side. And then turn to the other side. And just notice what your movement feels like. Now I'm going to continue with this little bit of rotation. Move the chair back a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Now as you turn to this side, let the opposite knee feel like it's pressing forward, as if you're trying to, if I was sitting right in front of you, my knees were against your knees, you'd be pushing your opposite knee into my knee. And then you come back, you turn to the other side and you're pushing the opposite knee into my knee. And then you keep going. And you'll notice that as you turn, your hands will move because you're taking your shoulder with you. So your shoulder blade moves towards your spine. So the opposite side to what you're turning to, that knee presses forward, opposite knee. And then you'll get that movement. You'll notice your sit bones will be shifting a little bit, forward and backwards. Your shoulder blade moves towards your spine. So you're not forcing it, you're going to where you feel comfortable, what feels nice, what feels easy. You're not forcing the movement, so you don't need to create any tension in your jaw or any tension in your hands. Or notice if your toes are feeling tight. Can you let them go? Just notice if your toes do feel a bit tight, what they've been tight for. Are they compensating for something? And just allowing them to feel easy. And then come back to the middle. And then come back to this, lifting your shoulder blade or lifting your arm, top of your shoulder out to one side or lengthening, as if someone's stretching you. and then stretching you. And stretch. Keep the pelvis still now. So let's keep the pelvis still and just work on that lengthening of the upper body, as if you're being, it's like a little bit of Play-Doh being pulled away from your pelvis, lengthening out. And it's off to the side. So you're not going forwards or going backwards. It's a sideways movement. It's if you're in between two panes of glass and you have to keep this movement in the middle. Not easy, no? So from a side view, for me, it would look like that. So I wouldn't be going forwards, I'd be staying along with the spine. But notice then, as you do this movement, what happens to your spine, how it changes shape, kind of curves with you. So when we sit sometimes, when we're curled up on the sofa sitting watching telly or watching the latest series on TV that's captured our attention, we tend to sit sometimes on the sofa with our feet tucked underneath us in this kind of curved position. So notice what happens to your spine when you do that, and which side of you lengthens and which side of you shortens. So if you habitually sit like that, say 2 or 3 times a week, your body will take on that shape, and it will find it hard to let go during the day, because it thinks that you sat there for an hour or so in that position. It thinks that's normal. And then, yeah, I know, and then come back to the middle. Okay, so come back to this little bit of turning. That's a lot freer, nice. And then come back and link your hands back together in the normal way, and then take them apart. We'll notice which, in your normal way, where your thumb and your index finger are, take the hands away from each other, unlink them, and put them back the other way. So the other thumb and the other index finger are forward. And then take the arms up above your head and reach over, and come back and reach over, and come back, and bring your arms forward and turn your palms away from you, and then turn them back inwards. And as you do that, take your arms down towards your legs, and then bring them back up again. So palms away, palms in, palms away, palms in. Go all the way up to the ceiling. You can take your head with you if you want to, and your eyes, and then keep doing that movement as you bring the arms back down. Arms in, arms away. Notice your elbows are moving. Just go as far as you feel you can go with your arms. If you can't get very high, then that's fine. Just notice where your range is, and you go within your range. You don't have to copy exactly what I'm doing. If you only get to here, and that's easy, then that's fine. Then you stay in that range. Because eventually, when you practice with your shoulders, you'll be moving slightly differently next time. But if you force it, you'll be going into the area that feels tight and making it tighter. You don't want to do that. Okay, so put your hands back on your legs, close your eyes, come back to noticing your breath, breathe into your belly. Let your belly expand, let your chest expand. Notice the space between your chest bone and the spine. Breathe into that space. And notice the space between your navel and your lower back, and breathe into that space. Relax your jaw, let go of your tongue. Notice the space between your right and left cheekbone, and notice the space between your right and left jaw. And just imagine for a moment that in your top row of teeth, you've got more space. So don't let your teeth feel crowded. Imagine that they're all little terraced houses that have suddenly become detached houses, and they've got lots of space around them. So allow your top row of teeth to feel that they could move away from each other slightly, as if they're just shuffling and moving away from each other. And it's just imagining it, but it does help to feel that feeling of letting go of any tension that you're holding that you might not be aware of in your mouth and in your face. And then also bring that awareness to the bottom row of teeth, and allow the bottom row of teeth to feel as if they're just shuffling around and moving away from each other. So they're decrowding, letting go of all the tension and the tightness and that feeling of restriction. And this is the nice thing, I do this during little spots throughout the day. So that widening of the jaw and that feeling that your teeth are moving away from each other. And just notice how that feels in your face, in your skin, in your neck, and in your shoulders. Thank you for joining me today. That was nice, good fun. Happy practicing. Have a lovely day.